And as the clock winds down on recertification of the Obama-era brokered Iran nuclear deal, next week, President Trump is expected to unravel it. With the October 15th deadline looming, if he makes no moves on it, he could potentially kick the can down the road into the lap of Congress, forcing their hand to reimpose sanctions on Iran. Critics warn that this could have a domino effect on national security. Joining me now to discuss, investigative journalist Gareth Porter. Gareth, good to see you.
Thank you.
Trump's own chairman of the Joint Chiefs has actually spoken up on this issue recently. Joseph Dunford recently gave testimony before the Senate Armed Services Committee, citing that Iran was actually complying with the deal and that withdrawing from this agreement could make it more difficult for America to reach diplomatic agreements with other nations moving forward. Do you agree with the general's assessment?
Well, yes, of course. My view has been all along that Iran was never really trying to get a nuclear weapon. The whole history of that program that they started in the 1980s has been one of avoiding weapons of mass destruction. That has been a fundamental position, a fundamental policy of the Iranian government since it was established in 1979. So I think what this shows is that the military leadership, which General Dunford represents, is very wary of moves by the United States which could move toward a military confrontation with Iran. They do not want war with Iran under any circumstances, and I think this is a position that they feel has to be made clear in order to discourage any policy that would move in that direction.
And I think it's important to reiterate that Dunford and a whole heap of other generals have said that Iran has not faltered, has not breached anything on this deal as it's written, that canceling it would say more about us as a nation. What do you think this says about America's new foreign policy?
Well, in fact, this is not a new foreign policy. This is a very well-established foreign policy. In fact, I think if we look back over the 3 decades or 2.5 decades of experience that involves both Iran and North Korea in terms of U.S. policy towards states that have moved towards a nuclear program, or in the case of North Korea, even a self-avowed nuclear weapons program. The evidence is very clear that what is wrong with this situation has been that the United States government and the political system have been unwilling to really offer a deal to either Iran or North Korea for all these years that would give either country the incentive to agree to what the United States has been asking of them. And in other words, the United States political system basically prefers to have a position or a relationship of animosity, and even to encourage, by lack of positive reinforcement, either Iran or North Korea to go ahead with moving towards nuclear weapons, rather than to have a fundamental agreement that would resolve the issues between the two of them. Not just have a dialogue, but resolve issues so that they could restore normal economic and political relations. The U.S. government and the U.S. political system have been fundamentally unwilling to do that. That is a fundamental problem that we have simply not come to grips with in this country. We must do so.
Last but not least, Washington considers Iran to be the world's leader in state-sponsored terrorism. Trump even called Iran a murderous regime at the UN just a week or so ago. How credible are those claims?
Well, the idea that Iran is the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism is a very old U.S. official position. I think it's no longer really meaningful, and I don't think that's really what they're after. What they're really interested in now is blaming Iran for everything that's happening in the Middle East. Everything has, of course, become chaotic in Syria, in Iraq, and in Yemen. And in all 3 cases, they're claiming that Iran is the hegemonic or would-be hegemonic power trying to impose its control over those countries. In fact, it doesn't require much research to look at the historical record and understand that in each case, Iran's role, such as it is in those countries, it's different in each case, is the result of external aggression or external forces being placed in the country to basically destabilize it in the case of Syria. So it's simply not credible for anyone who has an objective view of the situation to say that Iran has, in each of those three countries, gotten involved simply because it's trying to become the hegemonic power rather than responding to what has actually happened in each case.
Well, it's certainly not the narrative that you hear in mainstream media. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us, Gareth Porter.